Hey, what is up, YouTube? It's time for another video. Surprisingly, it's been a while, but hey, what we have here is my custom 24 PRS, and what we're going to be doing today is a quick slash full setup. I recently restrang this, and I realized that despite someone had told me anyway that these came factory like 10 to 46. Someone else on a PRS forum had asked me a question about what kind of neck was on this, so I went digging in my case to find the case candy basically that comes with every car you buy, usually US anyway. If you're wondering, it's just, I think the neck carve was just called regular, but lo and behold, the default strings that this thing is supposed to come with is 9 to 42. So when I restrang this, I went back to 9 to 42. And it feels great, it plays great, but I'm noticing that there's some fret buzz, which is to be expected. I mean, I set this up years ago for 10 to 46, and we just dropped to a much smaller gauge string. So I've done similar videos in the past. We're not going to be restringing this. We are literally just going to be doing a setup. What you're going to need, as per always, a tuner. All I'm going to be using today is, if you're following along and you also have PRS, you should have gotten in your case the truss rod adjustment tool, which also conveniently has a screwdriver, and the little Allen key to adjust the saddles, which we're going to be doing. Some of this I'm going to be eyeballing. If you have a ruler and you want to measure some stuff that way, that's fine too. But anyway, first and foremost, actually, I forgot my ruler, but I checked this morning, and the neck, I think I overstrained it a little bit, so we're just going to go ahead. What you're going to do is take the screwdriver bit. There should only be the one screw up here on the truss rod cover. Unscrew that quickly enough. Don't lose that screw, it's very small. So there you go, we're just going to remove that, put it somewhere safe so we don't lose it, and then the truss rod should just slide right off. There you go. So mine is an actual, you just heard it there, it's a metal. If you're following along again with the PRS, you're going to notice the nut is right there. Now I know that this is needing a little bit of relief. So what I'm going to do is just insert that. Just give it a little turn to the left to loosen the truss rod. This is a double action as well. What that means is going to the left is going to force it to bow forward. Going right is going to force it eventually to bow backwards. You want to kind of balance that and keep this. I've said this in past videos, PRSs you can keep like basically straight, not quite, but basically. So what you want to do is just hold down the string at the first and last fret, and then just kind of move it. You want to make sure there's just a little bit of a gap over the 9th fret. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9. And then just kind of tap it with your other finger here, just to make sure that you do have a little tiny bit. You don't want much, you want about enough, I'd say, to comfortably fit like a very small piece of paper kind of thing under there without having to force it. Maybe a little tiny bit more. But that looks good. Let's just check the treble side as well quickly here. Yeah, that's perfect. So our relief is set perfectly. So that should be that for the truss rod. There you go. So again, every step you're going to want to retune. So we're just going to do that super quick, and I'll be right back. Alright, so I'm tuned back up. I'm still getting a little bit of buzz. Not quite as much, so that truss rod adjustment already helped. The next thing we're going to take a look at is the bridge. If you can see there, it's kind of hard to get a good look at it here. Maybe the other way around would be better. The bridge. So how I'm not gonna fiddle with the knife edge. That you should never really have to play with unless you're buying a used one and someone's already fucked with it and you're trying to get it back. I'm not gonna go over that because I've never touched that and I don't intend to. I'm going to assume PRS knew what they were doing when they set up that knife edge. But I've had this thing since it came out, and it is a 20th. Actually, it's not on there. It is a 20th anniversary. And I've never really had to adjust much on this. I think I did back in the day, the first time I changed the strings, and it kind of felt weird. Which was because I got the wrong size. I had to reset it up, and now I'm going back to factory, so we're redoing it. This should be, basically it should look like it's a little bit tilted forward. So you can see here, it's almost tilting a little bit back. It should be more like that. Maybe more like that. So just a little bit. Which is normal because, again, we changed the string gauge. How do you adjust that? Well, you're going to have to open up the back of your guitar, and you're going to see here a claw that holds the springs that go into the bridge. That one's kind of popping out. So how you want to adjust this, I want this to go a little bit forward, so the screws at the back, right there. You're going to want to take your screwdriver, which again, the PRS tool works fine for this as well. And you're just going to want to unscrew the claw. Not much, a little bit goes a long way, but you also want to do it evenly on each side. So I'd say go about a quarter turn, a little bit more here. Don't want to go too far, and then again, as per always, you got to retune, recheck, repeat until it's basically where you want it to be. Again, I'm not measuring this, it's just I'm going by look and feel. Like I said, you want it to look like it's just ever so slightly tilting forward. Now, a lot of these steps you're going to have to rinse, repeat, and then even you go to the next one, adjust something, recheck the previous step. The only one I'd say you won't probably have to go back to is the truss rod adjustment. Unless you're changing string gauges, changing the tension. Once it's set, it's fine. Almost perfect. I think I'm just going to tweak it just a slightly bit more, and then I'll come right back. Alright, we are back, and I actually went to get my ruler. So what you want to do for the action on these, once everything else is set up correctly, and I think we are correct, you want to measure off the 12th fret, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Remember, it's always one further from the fret marker, so if you're at the 12th fret, it's the one past, not the one before. If you're American, you want to measure, PRS factory says about 2/32 of an inch. If you are Canadian or using metric, you want to go with about, give or take, 2 millimeters. So for each string, you want to measure for each string. This is also going to keep you radiused properly. So we are just a little bit low. Which, again, that's fine. That's what I was kind of expecting. We needed to tweak a bunch of stuff on this because we're changing the string gauge. I did recheck, and I was correct. My guitar clearly says it came with 9 to 40 seconds. PRS factory claims that Solid Body's factory are all sent out with 10 to 46, which is probably where I'd gotten that 10 to 46 to begin with. The guitar played fine with 10 to 46. It wasn't too bad. It was just a little bit heavy. I'm sticking to E standard on this, and it was just a little bit heavy. I kind of prefer usually shorter scale lengths, and to be honest, that just makes the strings just that little bit slinkier, and that's what I like. And so we are right about at the 2mm with this one. This one is also way off. So you want to just keep going, adjust, and again, you want to adjust both sides of the saddle with your Allen key. So remember, you're righty-tighty. If you're trying to raise, you want to turn right. If you're trying to lower, you want to turn left. The important part is, like everything else when you're doing a setup, is make a change, retune, recheck, make a change, retune, recheck, rinse, repeat. I can see why some people just don't want the hassle of doing this themselves, and they'll just pay someone to do it. That's fine. To me, it's just kind of expensive for something that you could learn easily enough and just do for yourself. Yeah, sure, it takes like a little while. It takes you maybe an hour. Just put on a movie, put on a TV show, something you don't really have to concentrate too hard on, and just do it yourself. You're going to save yourself so much money in the long run. Alright, we are back. All our saddles are adjusted. We went with basically 2mm across the board, which also kept our radius correct. If you haven't followed my videos in a while and you're wondering what the hell a radius is, well, that fingerboard, while much like the planet Earth, does look flat, more or less, depending on your guitar. If you've got a very vintage guitar, a lot less. If you've got something like a modern Ibanez, it's going to look almost flat. It's not. Much like the Earth, it's not flat. This, I believe, is like a 20-inch radius, which is actually quite flat. My Fenders are closer to a 10-inch radius, I think. So basically that means is the curvature, how curved it is. The higher the number, the flatter it is. The lower the number, the more of a pronounced curve there will be. If you've got something very vintage, like an old 60s Fender, that used to be like 7-something-ish or 9. I don't remember. It was a very low number, very pronounced radius. So yeah, the board is curved. You want the strings to match so that the strings aren't flat and the board underneath is rounded. That would just be weird. I forgot to mention, but you also obviously want to measure that 2mm is to the bottom of the string, not the top. I did go, and you can do this too, it's personal preference. I usually let the treble side go a little bit lower than 2mm, not by much, but just a bit. The important part is going to be how comfortable it is to you, and check for buzz. If you find it's way too high and you're willing to live with a little bit of fret buzz, go ahead, lower it. It doesn't matter. There's no set perfect measurement. What they put on the websites is just the factory recommended settings. If you have a very light touch and you don't pick super hard, going with a much lower action might be right for you. You might not even get that much fret buzz. So we are back to full tune. I rechecked the bridge. It is basically, like I was saying, just ever so slightly angled forward. I might play with that a little bit more, but it looks pretty good to me. There's no more buzz. Our action is now set. I find this comfortable. It is maybe a little bit higher than I usually prefer. But again, that might be why I had originally gone with the heavier string gauges, to be able to lower the action a bit, because obviously the bigger the string gauge, the more tension there is. More tension means it's not going to vibrate quite as much, which means you can go a little bit lower. But adversely as well, if you have a lighter string gauge, yeah, it might look higher, but they're so light that it's not going to impede your playing. So we have one last thing that we need to go ahead and check and then set. So again, you're going to need your tuner, and I've explained this before, but I'm just going to go over it again quickly. So again, you want to make absolutely sure you are perfectly tuned, just a slightly bit off here. New strings are gonna keep going a little bit off until they're fully stretched and played in. So, intonation. How do you even check the intonation? Well, once you are perfectly tuned to pitch, double check with the 12th fret harmonic, which again, I've said in past videos, I just find more precise. Then you want to fret at the 12th fret about how hard you would normally fret. So if you're very, very heavy-handed, mash that fret in. If you're very, very light touched, just play it like you normally would. So you've got an E, it's almost perfectly tuned. Your 12th fret harmonic should also be perfectly to pitch at E if you're sticking with standard E tuning, obviously. And then that 12th fret should also register on your tuner as perfectly an E. If it's off, like it is for me, and I was expecting it, again, change the string gauge, and we've just reset the action, we've reset the truss rod. That's fine. This is where you're going to now need your screwdriver again. I'm sorry. You're going to go for the back here. You're going to have screws. What these do, again, is adjust this saddle forward backwards. Depending on if you are sharp or flat, so if it's registering too high or too low, you want to adjust the saddle in the correct direction to correct that until you are perfectly to pitch. Here I'm sharp. Well, here, I think I've explained this before, but we'll go over it again. So we've got an E. How do you make that note sharper? Well, you start fretting. What does fretting do? It makes that string shorter. So E is the whole scale. If I'm all the way down to the 24th fret, that's going to be much sharper, and you've got much less of a string. So you want to use that kind of logic. Now I'm sharp, so I want to lengthen the amount of string at the 12th fret. How do you do that? Well, you move that saddle backwards. How do you do that? Well, you turn the screw at the bottom to the right to tighten and move that saddle ever so slightly back. Again, a little goes a long way with adjusting your intonation. And again, you want to retune between every single adjustment you make. Otherwise, you are just working for nothing. So we're back to tune. So again, E, almost perfect. Harmonic, perfectly on E. We want to check that 12th fret. Still just a little bit off, so we're going to go ahead and lengthen that just a little bit more. Not much, again, a little goes a long way. And you want to just rinse and repeat again. Like I said, doing this is time consuming. It's kind of boring unless you enjoy working on guitars. Which again is probably why they charge so goddamn much for you to go in and get a full setup. But, like I said, learn to do it. And there we go, perfectly to pitch. And you want to just rinse, repeat, and do all the strings. So I'm going to do that now, and we'll be right back for a little bit of a wrap up. Alright, we are back, and we are done. Rechecking everything, so you want to recheck one final time, just recheck absolutely everything before you call the job done, and we're done. Everything is now perfect. There is no fret buzz that I can really hear. And this thing just plays like a dream, like it's supposed to, like a PRS should. And that's how I like to keep it. This, like I said, is a 20th anniversary. They just had their 30th last year, so I've basically had this guitar for 11 years now. And this is the second time I've had to do a full setup on it. Take that for what it's worth. I think I've said this before, but stability doesn't exactly mean super high quality, I guess. But to me it does. If you don't have to spend all your time adjusting and retuning, and you can just sit down and play, so much the better, and the better instrument it is. One final look at this thing. This thing is also stunningly gorgeous. Front and back. I love that mahogany back. It doesn't really show, but it is nicely figured as well, for mahogany, obviously, which is not the most figured of woods. Like I said, I've had this for give or take 11 years now, and the absolute only negative I can see, the only flaw, is there's a little speck there, and that's it. And I don't even know when that happened or how that happened, and I don't care. For an 11-year-old guitar, this thing has held up perfectly. And there you go. Parting words, I guess. Make sure you keep your guitars set up properly, or else you're not going to enjoy playing. Secondly, if you haven't yet, check out PRS. I know they're kind of pricey. They're on the pricier end of things, granted. But even the Korean-made SEs are... keep in mind that Fender Squiers are made in God knows where now. Some of them are made in China. Epiphone are made in China now. PRS still, as far as I know, mostly made in Korea. Some models I think are made in Indonesia as well. But yeah, check out PRS if you haven't yet. I just can't say enough good things about these guitars. I've got two of them. I've got a bunch of Fenders as well, so I'm not sold out, if you will. I do enjoy. If it's a good guitar, I don't care what the brand says, but PRS has always been quality. I've got two of these, and I couldn't be happier with both of them. So there you go. That is how you set up a PRS Custom 24.